Welcome to Cinemophile, where we bring you the best in independent, documentary, and foreign films, and we talk to the people who made them. I'm your host, Mike Caspar, and you can find out more about the program by going to cinemaphilepod.com. Set against the backdrop of the 2008 economic crisis, Omaha follows a struggling father, played by John Magaro, who embarks on a road trip across the American West with his two children, Ella and Charlie, in search of hope and a better life. Well, what a well-done film. The acting is superb. It's a very well-done drama. Honored to have with us today the director of this wonderful film, Omaha, Cole Webley. Cole, welcome to Cinemaphile.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Happy to talk about the movie.
Understandably, it's just a well-done film. The look of it, the feel of it. There's something about the way you approach this project to give us a very stripped down version of this family and what they're going through. And John Magaro, who does such a fantastic job in this film. Tell me a little bit about the inspiration. Where did this project come from?
Well, I was the beneficiary of a friendship with the writer Robert Machoian and working with him on a different screenplay that I thought was going to be my debut film. I coerced Robert to send me anything on planet Earth that he had written, and he sent me this screenplay. And it was very clear that there was an incredible movie when I first read this movie, but I had the privilege of reading it with no inkling of wanting to direct it. I just simply was reading writing samples. And so I kind of like read it as a true audience member might. And it was transformative. I loved it. I sent it to my producer. I said, this is going to make an incredible movie. And I went back to work on this movie that we were writing together. And it was a great producer who came back to me and said, yeah, it's going to be a fantastic movie because you're going to direct it. And he said, this is our first movie. And I went back to it, and then I read it several times as the director, and it was there that I began to really see the extent of why this film was suited for what I love about movies, what I wanted to do with my debut film, and really the story itself and why it warranted the investment of both finance and time and energy, and why it needed to be a movie. I really had to put what I had thought to test. And was this a movie that I would want to pay to go see? Was this a movie that I would want to sit into a theater and watch? And it really was. And we can talk more about why, but I was very, very lucky that it came to me that way.
And I understand exactly that sentiment because from the very opening of the film, which is one of the things that I admire in filmmaking and the ability to tell a story, is to give us just enough information at the beginning of the film to get us interested in what's going on, but not really having a clear idea where we're going. And this film does a beautiful job of that. Really gives us that sense. I wouldn't call it mystique exactly, but there's an unknown factor that's hovering over the very opening of this film, and then you're there because you want to see how this is going to play out. And I think is that a fair way to put it?
100%. I mean, look, this movie, what intrigued me was the emotional potency of it in such a lean way. And I remember reading those first 10 pages, and saying, wow, we've already left their family home. We've already seen an interaction with some sort of law authority. We get a sense of they're not going back there. And we also get a sense that these kids are learning as they go where this journey is about to take them. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely a choice. Robert, true to the script, the movie pays. We're very, very loyal to how it was written on the page and how this movie starts and ends truly around that simple fact that, listen, we were going to ask you to be emotionally invested in these people, but we weren't going to give you a lot of story in terms of backstory and context. We were going to say you're a passenger in this vehicle, and you're going to find it out with these kids where you're going and why. Some of that was spoiled by naming the movie Omaha. So it wasn't hard to imagine where they might end up. But that was purposeful, and it was also risky, and it was also the way that I like to make movies. So ultimately, we leaned into that.
That emotional pull that you're describing is so much rooted in the character we call Dad from
Yeah.
almost the entire film, and Ella, played by Molly Bell Wright. And that's where the emotional core of the film is, that relationship. Yeah, there's so much to, I don't know exactly where to go, but there's a lot in a very compressed environment where you just sense, yeah. Talk a little bit about that relationship, building that relationship so that it pulls us in emotionally the way it does.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think for us to be invested in a film, we are invested with our heart and our mind.
Yeah,
And I felt like if my job was to if I could create fully fleshed out or nuanced or just kind of raw characters in Molly and Wyatt within the first 5, 10 minutes of the movie, we get a lot of grace from an audience for those first 10 minutes of a movie.
yeah,
But after that, you better have got them. And it's important for me that within 5, 6, 7 minutes, you were like, I don't know where they're headed, but I love this girl. I like this little kid, and by gosh, look at that cute dog. And now here, I mean that we weren't using the dog as a crutch, but it was part of their family. And
yeah.
then John, and then where we tried to intellectually obviously engage our audience is just the question of why and where, and the observation of those Social Security cards, the somewhat heard conversation with that law authority, the first stop at a gas station, not having enough money to buy both. There was enough there that I felt like, okay, we're going to have people really leaning forward. All right, where are they going? Why are they going? But I knew my primary goal was to really, really build a family that had a dynamic that we were just in love with. It's been done so many great times in world cinema. And so it's a tall task to kind of compare this relationship on camera with some of the greats. But I knew that was what was necessary, and so started with casting a father who was neither villain nor hero, and finding that perfect balance of an everyday man who, when you put the camera on him, suddenly transformed into a leading man. That was a believable in this circumstance, 2008 economic crisis, dealt a crappy hand, struggling with trauma of the loss of a loved one, of a spouse, probably dealing with some long-term mental health struggles. And then these kids who both Molly Bell Wright, who plays Ella, who was able to kind of walk this line of a coming of age adolescence and hope for innocent and easier times. And then of course her little brother Charlie, who's the wild animal of the bunch, who just simply gets to be the resilience of youth and the beauty of all possible future. Those three voices harmonizing, kind of making this beautiful family that sucked us into their emotional core.
That thing about Ella is that she's just old enough to understand what Charlie doesn't know or doesn't understand. And also, but not old enough in terms of her emotional intelligence she suspects things are going off the rails. And
Mhm.
then she is sort of filling in this impossible arc of their relationship between a daughter and the father, where she needs to be more of an adult than she's really capable of being, and she's not. It's just not as equal. It's not an equal relationship for a lot of reasons. But
Right.
she is so empathetic. I mean, to the telling of the story, she is in some ways our avatar in this film. She's the one who is going to be dealing with the brunt of it, whatever that is.
Yeah, and it was even kind of, I would say in the screenplay, even more overtly through her perspective. Day one of the shoot, John Magaro shows up, and obviously he was there a few days before, but we put him on camera, and I just start to realize, how do I not capture some of this internal journey with him where the kids wouldn't be privy to it? But previously, I had only wanted to shoot him if the kids were in within eye shot of him. But that's only just to say, like, even more, the perspective of Ella was always kind of hugely important, and as you say, maybe our avatar for how we experienced the movie. And that was it. It was just watching this parent in maybe the worst 3 days of his life, and a child who is just holding on to hope that things are going to be okay, but being forced to be this mother figure to her little brother. And kind of beautiful in the way that she does it without even being forced to do it. She wants to be that caregiver to him. I think of the scenes where they're playing the swimming and she's changing him and helping him get into his swimming clothes and stuff like that. And it's like a really beautiful thing of like mothers too, what she had learned from her mother too.
Yes, all the things you're talking about are so important to the film, and one cinematic aspect to the film is the cinematography. Paul Myers, who I believe you've worked with in the past, is just strikingly beautiful in a kind of Badlands kind of way, and also in the shots during the kind of night and darkness and such. Is it's just a beautiful film to look at.
I'm so proud of the look of this movie. We really studied the majority of our prep work was with photographers, and there's been so many great photo books of photographers doing road trips across the American West. That was kind of our heartbeat of like what we wanted to achieve was an effortless beauty that reminded us of how you literally step out of a car, look up a valley, and you're greeted with this majestic look, a beauty of what the American West is. So, I mean, I think like the locations, we very specifically shot our locations with that in mind. But furthermore, it was also just the composition that felt more photographic than maybe the film language in a blocking with a capital B or like movement of the camera. We wanted an observational cinema verite aesthetic that leaned into those, sunburnt cheeks and hot roadway because of the sun cutting through a window and things like that. And then we wanted to give the film, I would have shot on film if I could have afforded it, but we wanted to give it a timelessness. And that was a big post-production process of first testing a bunch of lenses, ultimately landing on a set of very old, I wouldn't say vintage, but I would just say like very, very utilitarian Zeiss super speed type two super speeds, have been just a workhorse for movies for 30 years or whatever, 40 years. We wanted something like that, and we just stripped it all away as much as we could. Effortless, cinematic kind of like landscapes. I'm
Yeah.
really proud of that. And it was a lot of people. It was Paul Myers, of course. It was the work that we did on set. It was Daniel Devu, our colorist. It was Matt, our gaffer. It was everybody. It was Steve, our key grip.
And to the extent that I'm correctly remembering the look of it, the color palette is fairly muted across the
Yeah.
whole film, even in these majestic settings that we see ourselves in. And it's something I think is underappreciated to be able to get the look when you've seen a lot of the same scenery in much crisper, brighter, more kind of majestic, if or yeah, just sort of ways that you see this same landscape, but in a different setting, in a different film, and a different story. It also conveys what you just described, that sense of place and the sense of the story itself. That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for noticing. A lot of effort went into every one of those decisions. You don't happen by chance to have a just kind of look that way ultimately. And it's for the psychological effect of what you're describing. It's nostalgic without being uh obvious, I suppose.
Well, again, the film is called Omaha. We're talking with the director, Cole Webley, and I know it got a nice bounce from Sundance this year, and it's congratulations on
Thank
coming
you.
out of Sundance with some momentum and obvious for any kind of independent films, especially a story that is not all candy
Easy
corn.
to,
And
yeah.
yeah, it's a story that does in fact ask the audience to, as you said, I think beautifully, lean in and listen and pay attention to what's going on, and terrific performances. Yeah, John has become quite a working actor on a lot of different films now. His career is really in full bloom, and Molly was fantastic. Molly Bell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot here to recommend in terms of moving forward. Now you've got your first featured film out, and what are you learning? What do you want to do next? How are things looking?
Oh, Mike, I've all I've wanted to do since I was 12 was, make movies. And I'm not even embarrassed by how nerdy and cheesy that sounds, but I was very lucky to spend a decade and a half making commercials and giving my family some financial security and stuff. And I hope that continues, but this was the first of many. I hope to make movies till I'm in my 80s, if I can stay healthy.
Amen.
So
That's good. Yeah.
the next one is another great drama that is a script that came to me that we're putting together right now, and we're gaining momentum, and I think I'm excited about the actors who are excited about it, and so hopefully that's something I'm in production in within the year.
Oh, great. The film Omaha is coming out. Is it the 24th? Do I have that correct?
That's
I'll put
correct. It's opens New York City April 24th and nationwide in May.
okay. LA appearance or LA
Yes.
screenings or later on
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
okay.
we're going to come to town and open it at the New Art Cinema Theater in downtown LA on May 1st and May 2nd.
Okay.
It'll be there. And then, I mean, we play in Glendale, we're in Santa Clarita, we're in,
So you're in the Limleys. Now, the New
yeah,
Art's, yeah, that's another animal. And by the way, the New Art, and I say this all the time for people in Los Angeles area, you're on the 405 freeway, you look over at Santa Monica Boulevard, you'll see the New Art. You can see it from the freeway. So, yeah, definitely check it out. So, well, I'm looking forward to more. And it's been an honor and privilege to
oh,
talk
thank
to you, a
you.
pleasure to talk to you about your film Omaha. I said that wrong. Let me start that again. We've been speaking with the director, Cole Webley. Thank you,
Thanks,
Cole.
Mike.
Thank you.
Pleasure. A pleasure.
You have been listening to Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar, the place where you will hear from the best in independent documentary and foreign filmmakers. Please check out our previous interviews as well as upcoming interviews and special programming by going to cinemaphilepod.com. We are also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, searchable under Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar. Until next time, thank you for listening.